Welcome to Intuitive Reactions, the MENA and Gulf regions. This is number 28. A multicultural concert, let's call it a musical festival, took place in Baalbek in the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, amid the Roman ruins and the temple of Bacchus, known also quite appropriately as the Temple of the Sun, on Sunday, the 5th of July. The event was entitled The Sound of Resilience, and it was also projected on the wall of the National Museum in Beirut, a museum that lies on the Green Line which cleaved Beirut into different sectors during the Civil War from 1975 till 1990. As I watched the concert, with its reminiscences of years past, it became clear to me as a non-Lebanese that here was an event where the East and the West were coming together and where tradition was meeting with modernity. The festival was also full of symbolisms. It started with the powerful poem O Fortuna, that is part of a collection known as Carmina Burana, composed by the German Karl Orff in the 1930s, which engages with the fate of both gods and mortals alike. It then went through almost an hour and ended with the ray of bursting sunlight, that is the Ode of Joy from Beethoven's stormy Ninth Choral Symphony. For me, watching the concert being transmitted worldwide, it was also a sad message that a chapter in the life of Lebanon is perhaps coming to an end, but that there is the promise, the need perhaps, of rebuilding a new Lebanon that is different. Today, joining me in a conversation of few minutes to discuss this concert, this festival in Baalbek a few days ago, is Dr. Elizabeth S Kassab, a friend, somebody who's already been with me on this program before, a philosopher, and a leading authority of Arab contemporary thought. I wanted to nudge Dr. Kassab a little bit in terms of her reactions as a Lebanese who watched this concert and how she reacted to it herself. But this is a conversation. It is not an interview. I'm not a journalist. I don't know how to be a journalist. So what I'm going to suggest is put to Dr. Kassab two ideas, two themes, and hope that she will, in her answers, build on them and share with us her own understanding of that concert. The first theme that struck me is the contrast between the throbbing beauty of this festival and the reality of Lebanon today, with people committing, alas, suicide, having no food, or even lots of houses deprived of electricity, all the way from the rich neighborhood of Ashrafiyeh in Beirut to various places further afield. Is this concert, therefore, not a jarring contrast that is really only a gasp of nostalgia, but rather inappropriate for the Lebanon of today? That's my first thought. The second thought that struck me is that watching from all corners of the world, the feedback and messages of abundant love, abundant support for Lebanon in the chat column that I was reading, made me think whether this dichotomy is not one of the challenges facing Lebanon today. That there are nowadays two concepts of Lebanon, as it were. And in the words of Rudyard Kipling, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. So I would like to listen to a Lebanese intellectual, a woman who I understand because we are friends. She told me that she was very moved by watching this concert. Dr. Kassab, your thoughts on the Baalbek Festival?
Well, you know that this festival started, the Baalbek Festival started back in the mid-50s. And it became very soon a landmark of this flourishing Lebanon, this Paris of the East and what have you. And indeed, over the years, world-renowned artists, dancers, singers, musicians performed in Baalbek, and some say an elite or art lovers did the pilgrimage, made the pilgrimage to Baalbek to attend, to watch that festival. It got interrupted during the Civil War for obvious reasons. And then it was picked up in the 90s, and people, it was a symbol of, you know, the going back to life, to normality, to beauty, to, and so this year with everything happening from Corona and from the severe economic crisis, this festival obviously did not take place. And instead, the organizers decided to have a festival without a public, only an orchestra with a choir, to mark the event, but also to mark the 100th anniversary of this, the state of Lebanon. And so I thought, okay, it's a symbolic act. They're saying we're here, we're trying to mark this, that we have not disappeared, that the effort to stay alive and to stay artistic is there. So to tell you the truth, I didn't watch it to start with. And then I was on Facebook and I saw comments full of tears, full of outrage, people saying, as you mentioned, my God, how can they do such a concert in the middle of so much misery? People, 3 men had committed suicide the day before. So this is insensitive. This is, you know, a disconnect from reality. Others were saying, well, poor old Leb, full of nostalgia, and hence also Lebanese abroad who were very moved, obviously, with very nostalgic remarks. And some were saying this is the swan song of Lebanon. This is the end of it. This is like the final act of a certain Lebanon, a Lebanon celebrating life, celebrating art, open to the world. This is the end of it. It's just the final act. Others were saying it's so wonderful. It's a sign of hope. So I thought, no, I should watch it myself. And indeed, I was myself very, very moved. And I think it was a strong emotional moment, and I think with mixed feelings. All of the spectrum of emotions were there. Anger at what has become impossible, nostalgia, regret, a painful reminder of what is no longer possible, the contrast between the disaster we are in and what could have been possible. And I must say it was, I think all Lebanese, many Lebanese felt it as a very strong emotional moment with all those facets, with contradictory feelings. So I cannot describe it with just one feeling. And I think everything came into it, the regret, the pain, and about, yes, of course, those who said, my God, people are committing suicide and look at these people, they're organizing a concert. Well, I think the director of the festival, Madame Naila Defrege, was very clear in her message just before the concert that this was not in denial of what was happening. So it was not just that people were oblivious or that they were, you know, in a la-la land in the midst of some people described it as the sinking of the Titanic and the orchestra playing. I think the singers and the musicians and the organizers were very aware of the disaster and the sinking we are going through. And it was an act of defiance. And I think it was a beautiful.
Can I just interrupt there for 1 second? I heard everything you said, and I wouldn't disagree with any of that. But I just want to point out also to our viewers that the quality, the caliber of the performances was also exceptional. This wasn't only about regret, nostalgia, this, that, and the other. This was also the beauty and the excellence of a festival, an activity, an event that was set together with a wonderful conductor that basically projected a sign of achievement, a sign of beauty as much as anything else.
This is, I think, one of the most painful points. You see that this people, like any other people who is given the chance, loves life, celebrates life, has good artists, good musicians, is full of potentialities. So, and I think this is what is paid, that the country and the people is hostage to very unfortunate, apropos fortuna, circumstances, geopolitical, internal conflicts that haven't been resolved. And I think my comment on Facebook was, yes, we are capable of a lot of good things, but we were incapable up till now to construct a state that would protect all of this life and all of this creativity. And here we are. And we haven't been able to do it because of historical reasons, and we won't go into that. But this is the painful thing about it, that the disaster we are in does not define us, or we don't want it to define us because we are capable of something else. And this festival is just one example, one illustration of what could be possible.
I agree with that, and I agree with the sense of creativity and the sense of hope that go alongside all the negative aspects that define Lebanon today. If I were to, you've clearly felt it on your skin, as it were, because your reaction has been not only one of calm analysis, but one of agitated feelings all tumbling together, and you're trying to find the words to clothe those feelings. And I appreciate that, because I'm sure, and I saw on social media, many of your Lebanese co-citizens saying pretty much the same thing. Let me conclude with a simple question. Unless you have anything else to add, please find the medium for it. Do you expect this to happen next year again?
Good question. Where will we be next year? I think that the emotions have also something to do with the accumulated pain. You know, we have been going through these ups and downs of life and death, literally and metaphorically, for half a century now. If you count the early 70s, the Civil War, the post-Civil War, it has all been from one disaster to another. This people is filled with tragic fortunas, hence also the emotions, like unfortunately all our neighbors in the area. Well, life, I think we hang on to life and hope for better times.
You know, let me just conclude by saying, Dr. Kassab, that the Ode to Joy, Beethoven's Ninth, is also, as you know, the anthem for the European Union. And the whole idea behind it is that there is hope. So perhaps, despite all the difficulties, we can conclude on a note of hope. What do you say?
Today, I think hope is not about being optimistic. It's just the will to hang on to life and to defy fortuna.
I do not want to take that negatively. I'm going to take that positively because I love your country and I think that there is, as you just mentioned, huge potential if it were exercised properly and in the right direction. Once again, now you've become my regular guest on Intuitive Reactions. I'm delighted and I love your books, by the way. And I kept being drawn as you were speaking. Sorry about that. It does not decrease the importance of what you were saying, but I was looking at your two owls and thinking, that is really cute. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. And all the best, not only to you in your endeavors, but also to Lebanon. And who knows, inshallah, next year.
Inshallah.